Finally, Sankos, let's talk about Scotland, because the SNP could, if the polls are to be believed, do even better this time round than last time.
It does feel like they're in a pretty commanding position, and I think the big danger in Scotland actually is for the Labour Party. People are already down here talking about the need for Labour to make progress in the May elections and to show that they are beginning to claw back some of the territory from the SNP in Scotland. There's no sign that that's working at all. Nicola Sturgeon appears like a pretty Teflon politician, and if you see Labour facing another catastrophic defeat in May, then the chances are that the current Labour leader, the sort of moderate, the Jim Murphy choice, Kezia Dugdale, will also fall by the wayside. And then I think one of Jeremy Corbyn's allies will probably come in and take her place, meaning that the Scottish Labour Party is pretty much a Corbynite entity. We saw from some polling, admittedly on a very small sample, that narrowly they would vote Jeremy Corbyn over David Cameron, Boris Johnson, George Osborne if there was an election immediately. And I think that sense that the Scottish Labour Party is now behind the Westminster leader will be something to watch if Labour does catastrophically in May.
Thank you to both of you. Cat Smith, what evidence is there of any recovery by Labour in Scotland?
Well, we make no bones about it. It's going to be a very challenging election for Labour in Scotland, and we've got a long way to come back from the general election defeat, which almost saw us wiped out by the SNP.
And nothing's changed, has it?
Well, I think we've got to give these things time. We've got to re-earn the trust of the voters in Scotland, and that's not going to happen overnight. And I'll be up in Scotland campaigning, knocking on doors with my party there, and it's going to be a slog, but I think we can come back, and it's just going to take time.
Is Kezia Dugdale the right leader?
I think Kezia is a fantastic leader of the Scottish Labour Party.
Right,
and very happy to support her. I think she's a very strong.
And do you think there should be a bar? Do you think there should be a bar in May in terms of performance for Labour?
Like I say, it's going to be very challenging, and as I'm not Scottish myself, I'm certainly not going to be the person that sets any bars for the performance of the Scottish Labour Party there. I
mean, in a way, Tommy Sheppard, will an SNP victory, one that's either equal to or better as last time round, give you a mandate for another referendum on independence?
We probably won't be seeking a referendum on independence in the May elections. That's not going to be part of the manifesto.
No, but I was saying, but if you did well, would that then kick-start?
Well, one of the things we will be seeking in our manifesto in May is certainly more powers and authority coming north of the border, and the Scottish Government being able to have more control to shape the lives of people in Scotland.
Right.
And in that sense, there is still unfinished business from the last referendum and from the general election decision. And it will be for the government to decide how it responds to those wishes of the people if the SNP does get the majority that people are
right. I mean, on Sunday,
we do intend to fight for every single vote. We take absolutely nothing for granted in this coming election.
What's the SNP achieved so far at Westminster?
At Westminster, well, I think we provided a very strong voice for Scotland. We have fought very hard.
But what's been achieved? Can you point to a policy, anything that you've changed, done?
Well, one of the great misfortunes was that the SNP won the election in 56 out of 59 seats in Scotland last May. We didn't see the type of government we would like to have seen in England, and we got, as no one expected, a Tory majority government. So in those circumstances, it's difficult to actually achieve things. But there are certainly many aspects in which our resistance with others has been part of the process of making the government run away from debates, whether that be on the Human Rights Act, the timing of the EU referendum, or whether it indeed be reversing its position on tax credit cuts.
I mean, to return to the independence referendum, on Sunday, Nicola Sturgeon kick-started, if you like, the SNP's election bid. She said the SNP has a special responsibility to lead a renewed debate about independence. Do you agree with her on that? It will be seen as a platform after May to go for another independence referendum.
Well, I think the way I see it, and I think the way most people see it, is that Scotland is now much more relaxed after the referendum as a country. It's heading on a journey which I think will lead to independence. I mean, one of the interesting opinion poll questions is if you ask people, do they think they'll see independence in their lifetime? And a clear majority, 60% plus of people say yes to that question. So it's now seen as a natural state of affairs rather than a far-off, distant dream in the horizon.
It's a natural state of affairs, but, you know, people might say, your supporters might say, now, seize the opportunity now. The SNP may never be as popular as they are now in Scotland. Why wouldn't you go for it?
It's not even been 18 months since we had a thorough referendum and a thorough examination of this question, and we respect the decision that was taken in that, although we would point out that one of the reasons why why a lot of people voted against independence, is because they were made promises that have not been kept. So it's part of our job to try and make sure those promises are kept and to advance the cause
and
of
perhaps
independence.
use the powers that you already have at your disposal.
Yes, and to get more powers so we can do more.
Right, but there hasn't been a demonstration of what you have done with the powers so far when I've spoken to SNP
Well, I think
politicians.
if you ask kids in Scotland who don't have to pay tuition fees to go to university, or people when they're sick who don't have to pay for their medicines...
Hospital waiting times at hospitals like in Glasgow, the delays on the Forth Bridge, are these the things that you've achieved?
Hold on. Well, which one do you want me to talk about?
Let's start with the admissions. Let's start with admissions.
Well, the health service in Scotland, whilst we obviously need to do more and there's room for improvement, we are now achieving the 95% target on waiting times, which is not being achieved.
That wasn't the target
anywhere
you
else. 95% was the target.
Was it? I thought it was higher than 90. I thought it was 98%.
Well, we'd like to get it, but the target was 95%, and that is being achieved.
What about the delays to the Forth Road Bridge? Closed for weeks and then had to admit that the maintenance budget was indeed cut.
Yes, but the reason why it was closed was not to do with that, as Labour tried to make a point in that and had to retract very quickly on it. The Forth Road Bridge is quite an old structure, 50 years old this year. It's coming to the end of its life.
These are things you have the power to do something about.
The Scottish Government took a safety-first attitude. If there was something wrong with the bridge, we closed it, so putting public safety first, and we were able to get it open ahead of schedule.
And well, only because it had been delayed. I mean, it was quite interesting when it was delayed and then suddenly it was announced it was going to be early.
I want to talk about the Forth Road Bridge. The replacement crossing, the Queensferry crossing, is actually under budget and ahead of schedule in its construction.
Has flood defence cash been reduced as well?
Yes, but not by as much as it has in England
but
and
it's
Wales.
been reduced, and communities in Scotland have had the most dreadful time over Christmas and New Year.
Absolutely. And
was that a wise decision?
The Scottish Environment Protection Agency are warning that rivers are still rising in Aberdeenshire tonight. So we need to look and see if there is enough being put into flood defence. There has been a cut of 6% in the SEPA budget. However, George Osborne is planning a cut of 30% in the DEFRA budget.
But these are the things, as you said, that you have the powers to do something about. I mean,
we don't set the overall Scottish budget. That's set by George Osborne.
Indeed, but there are things you can do, and I'm just trying to go through some of the issues
many of
that
which we have done. Free education, free medicine,